Hey everyone, Brian from Bearable Traders here. It is June 23rd, Sunday afternoon. Just take a look at the week that was, and let's look ahead and see what we got coming up. There's a fair amount of economic data that's going to be released this week. We've also got Fed Chair Powell is going to be talking on Tuesday. He's going to be speaking, and I don't think any new light's going to be shed on anything, but he is talking. And then we've got, of course, the much anticipated G20 summit coming up at the end of the week. And over the weekend, some of the leaders will be meeting. Obviously, Trump's meeting with Xi, the Chinese premier. Don't really think anything substantial is going to get announced, other than there's going to be a lot of smiles and handshaking, and we're working towards something. But as I've said before, the issues are very complicated, and they're not something that's going to get resolved over the weekend. So we'll see if whatever they've done or whatever they do coming up is going to be enough to suffice the markets. But let's take a look at how we did on the week and look at some of the market internals. We're still a little more stocks above the 200-day versus the below. Same with the 50 moving average. New highs, much, almost 70% compared to the new lows. So internals are looking pretty good, although this is kind of weird. The advance, a lot less stocks advancing than declining on Friday. So let's take a look at the groups. I don't think we're going to see anything new here that's leading the way. I think it's going to be the safety trade is still going to be on here. Healthcare and utilities, of course, better performers on the Friday week. Healthcare and basic materials, healthcare, consumer goods, utilities still up there for the month. So a lot of the safety trade stuff is still on. So let's take a look at the indexes. Start out by looking at the 10-year yield. Again, we had a real sell-off again during the week and bottomed, and it looked like it bounced back on Friday. Let's see what the week looks like. We really got, with the announcement on the Feds this week, where they said probably indicated maybe we'd be getting some rate cuts coming later in the year, July, September, and see here the rates sell off. But then they came back, so that's kind of a interesting price action. So I don't know if this looks like a bit of a bottoming candle, and I guess we'll see what happens. Pretty oversold. And let's take a look at the indexes. The Dow, had a reversal date on Friday. Let's take a look at how we ended on the week. Almost got to a new high, but came back off substantially. RSI is still rising. Did so on decent volume. MACD is still turning up here, so we'll see if this this candle here is some kind of an indication that maybe we're going to reverse here. We had a bit of a candle like right there, so similar candle. Let's take a look at the IWM, the small caps. Small caps sold off on Friday. And again on the week, pulled back significantly from their high, right at the 50-day moving average. Let's see, the volume was sort of average. RSI still trending up. Technology sold off again on Friday. Again, got close to the high, prior high. Did a bit of a pullback on Friday. Decent volume. And finally the SPY. I think we made a new high on the SPY. And we punched to a new high, but then we couldn't hold that, pulled back. And so everything looks like it's a little tenuous. They tested some highs, but then pulled back on it. Let's take a look at the dollar. The dollar really took a kick in here on the news that more rate cuts are coming, and you can see it really sold off here. Back down to some support. I would expect it maybe to bounce here a little bit. It's probably maybe partially a contributing factor as to why gold rallied so hard, apart from being a safety trade. The US dollar sold off pretty hard. Oil was also up, so with the dollar strength weakening here. So we'll see if we get a bit of a bounce next week on this. And the VIX, interesting. We pulled higher on the week, but the VIX is starting to creep up here. It's kind of an indicator maybe that some of the more sophisticated traders were out there buying protection, and they're maybe thinking that maybe that we're at close to or at new highs on some of the indexes, that maybe they should be locking in some gains and putting some protection on at the very least. So that's maybe what's going to happen here. Let's see what the weekly looks like on this. Kind of interesting price action. We had a significant reversal doji style pattern here on the week, so maybe it might hold this level here and could be a good entry to trade against on VIX. And sometimes you can trade the TVIX. See what that looks like. You can see here it came back up on the last 2 days, same as the VIX. Let's kind of zoom down a bit here. It was getting really oversold, so this could be an oversold bounce. But we've got a level to trade against here. Maybe this 19 level, and see what happens next week. Let's take a look at the stocks we got on the actives. Gold had been in, and you can see here we had a pretty significant run on gold. I put on the Bollinger Bands. This is a third standard deviation. You can see we're way up through the third standard deviation, which quite often stocks don't hold through this. It's usually a sign that they're pretty overbought. So I'm expecting a bit of a pullback. We'll see if the dollar bounces, we'll probably get a pullback on gold. But I'm not expecting this to weaken more than just maybe a pullback might be a good place to get an entry or add to a position if you're already in gold. But I would say we're probably due for a little bit of a pullback here, a pretty monster week here. FAS, I took an entry in and took around 771. Looking at this as a bit of a reversal, maybe with interest rates going lower, we might get a bounce back up here to close to $8. I'll take my profits there because there's some resistance there. But right now we're in that trade. Keep an eye on that one. And this is the way it played gold. NUGT again, this is really looking really extended. 85 on the RSI, 86 on the RSI. Let's take a look at the Bollinger Bands here really quickly. Add those in there. You can see here we're pretty close to third standard deviation on that as well. Really strong move. So I'm looking for a pullback on NUGT. Let's take a look at the ones on watch this week. I've been watching BABA. You can see here we kind of got a rally into the anticipation coming up to the summit, but I think we're kind of getting toppy here. I don't really expect any kind of further move. Might get another one into Friday. We'll see. Baidu did finally hit 120. It did do a pullback on Friday, and just again keeping an eye on that. I mean, those will rip if we do get any kind of substantial deal, but again, I'm thinking that likelihood is very low. Just looking at CELG here with the healthcare stocks doing really well. Healthcare and utilities, I've said before, the safety trades seem to be creeping higher, and you can see here CELG, it looks like it wants 100, because when stocks get this close to 100, they often move through it. Let's take a look at what it looks like on the weekly. Yeah, 100, see here, bounced, it pushed through 100 and then pulled back. I'm expecting this to go through 100 and then do a pullback, check back. But I would expect next week that CELG, with the strength of the healthcare stocks, etc., is gonna do a move to probably 100. Let's go back here. All right, next one. So let's take a look at Facebook here quickly. Again, it pushed pretty close up to the prior highs, and now we've got a rejection from the high, and it's still holding in there. I think it's probably going through 200. We'll see what happens next week. It's pretty. I'm not seeing an entry here. Volume was pretty good on Friday. Again, still strong. I guess with this idea with their currency that they're introducing. ITB, interesting, the home shares are selling off. So I think we've got some home sales data coming out on during the week sometime, and we'll see how the home builders do. But you would think with interest rates going lower, there'd be a higher demand for housing. So I'm just it's kind of a curious anomaly. Chinese internet, KWeb, ETF, again took a bit of a hit on Friday after a bit of a run-up anticipation, I guess, to this G20 summit. And again, we'll see it's probably going to chop along this week. Micron actually reports this week. We got a few companies that are actually starting to report. FedEx, Micron, BlackBerry, I believe, is reporting later in the week. So we'll have to keep an eye on Micron. Micron, I believe, is Tuesday, and we'll see what it says after Broadcom reported and had some less than stellar things to say about condition of the industry. So we'll just see what happens with Micron. But be aware they are reporting this week. Silver is the poor man's gold, so kind of missed a first move on that with the jump up in the gold prices. This is one way to play silver. It's the Pan American Silver Corp. They obviously jumped up, and even with silver pulling back on Friday, it made a move higher. So it's coming up into an area of, so I'm going to say, some resistance maybe up in this area, 1326. If we can get an entry back here at 1250, it might be a decent play. So I'm going to set an alert for that, 1250, and we'll see if we can get a pullback on Monday and maybe try to take an entry on this one. Let's take a look at silver itself. You can see this is one way. This is a trust. You can play silver price. Again, it did a big pullback, but kind of did a reversal on Friday. So if you really want to get crazy and play a levered ETF, you can use USLV instead of just SLV. You'll get a much bigger move on that if you want to play silver. But I would look for a bit of a pullback to get an entry on either one of those. And if gold does pull back, then we'll get another pullback on silver and give it a chance to get an entry on silver as well. Again, the semiconductors talked about Micron. We'll see what happens when they report. I can see this one's going to hang around until Micron reports maybe. And then we'll get some kind of a move. Yeah, we had a big rollover in natural gas pricing, and you can kind of see it's getting pretty oversold here at 25 or 26 on the RSI. Maybe due for a bounce here, but trend is definitely to the downside. You can see here we've got some trend lines, and it actually, it came right back down, touched that trend line there, and you can maybe see this. Where it broke. It just started to break down from this level, and then we have a trend line came down, touched that, maybe going to be due for a little bit of a bounce, but I still think looks like it's still pretty weak. Wouldn't expect much more than a bounce. And let's take a look at oil. Oil did fairly well on the week, I think partly with the US dollar selling off, tensions in Iran, in the Gulf, and coming up into a level that may be some prior resistance here. right from this level, from here. So we may end up doing a bit of a pullback here. Moving averages are still coming down. The volume was pretty light on Friday, so I'm thinking this is a little extended right now, so maybe look for a little bit of a pullback on that one if it's see where it ends up hanging out. But it did do a big gap fill here. Did a gap fill with another gap, so it's kind of interesting. And that's it. So hope everyone's had a great weekend. And here's my book on Amazon, How to Swing Trade. If you have a chance, you can check it out. I hope everyone has a great rest of what's remaining of the weekend. And anybody who's joining us in the Bear Bull Trading Room, whether on Facebook Live in the morning or as members, hope to all see you there. And like I said, enjoy the rest of the weekend, everyone.